Morning, everybody. Something very interesting in the news right now. In Israel, in the Holy Land, there's a controversy about I believe, a cable station or a satellite station receiving their license to broadcast, and it's called GOD TV. And it's a Christian television channel. I believe it's not the first Christian channel to ever be on Israeli TV. I think perhaps maybe the main difference is it'll be in Hebrew, or then some people say that it's one of these groups that conflate Judaism and Christianity. And there's a tremendous controversy in Israel about giving them their license to broadcast and so forth. I have a problem with this controversy. It's on several levels. Of course, I don't want secular Israelis to convert to Christianity. However, I think it would be an improvement. I think that Christianity is much better than the atheism and hedonism of the Israeli secular culture. And so therefore, all these rabbis and other people who are, I can understand other people who are not rabbis and so forth, whatever their agenda is. But do these same rabbis who are upset about this channel, GOD TV, are they upset about the other heresies? And not only that, but I understand, similar to how they have in Europe, that after a certain time at night they're allowed to show pornography on regular television, not paid television in Israel, which is maybe it might not technically be considered pornography, but it's inappropriate for sure. We would probably consider it to be pornography and to be forbidden to look at. And therefore, what kind of where are these rabbis rallying against this? You know, that small children, you know, a major issue that they're talking about is that children could be exposed to these things. But again, what kind of things are children being exposed to in Israeli culture and Israeli society that are really much worse than these things? So there's a certain level of hypocrisy if you're arguing against a channel that's promoting Christianity, but you're not arguing against channels that promote atheism and hedonism and all kinds of things that are problematic according to the Jewish tradition. But the other thing is that Israel is a secular country, and it's none of our business. You know, if they want to put something on their television, you know, someone wants to pay for it and put it on and so forth. I don't understand. You know, what do you expect? How it's a free? It's supposed to be. It's not a free country like America. I understand, but I think it should be. I think it'd be better off with the freedoms. And so therefore, you know, if you don't want to see these shows, don't watch them. And if you don't want to see the same thing, I would say with all the other issues. I'm not saying to take down these other shows from Israeli TV. I'm just saying it's hypocritical to be upset about someone who's teaching ethics, monotheism, our Bible, and just, all right, so they add a little other things that we disagree with. But 99% of the things we agree with them on, as opposed to the secular Israelis, 100% of the things we disagree with them on. So then it's really just a level of bigotry, in my opinion, to be upset about this issue and not to be upset about all these other issues. And they're not trying to get the license taken away for all these other things. And I really don't think they should, meaning the Haredi community in Israel, they just don't watch television. They don't, it's not on their radar. They really, for the most part, want to live and let live, but they want to be left alone. And that's about it. They don't want people, harassing them, and forcing these things down their throats. But otherwise, what's going on? And the truth is, even though he probably meant it somewhat as a hyperbole, but the Satmarov said that it's better to bow to a cross 1,000 times in a day than for 1 minute to learn the modern Hebrew language, the Zionist language that's not ancient traditional biblical Hebrew. Because Maimonides says that heresy is worse than idolatry. It's hard to say that really Christianity is idolatry. It's really more or less just we disagree on certain aspects of theology and certain things. It's certainly forbidden for a Jew to practice Christianity, but the thing is, Jews do a lot of things that are forbidden. We don't have, the government trying to regulate so many of these things. But the problem is, certain things in Israel they do regulate. And again, I don't see why they are regulating all these aspects. I think, I believe in freedom much more. But then it comes to another issue. Because you set a precedent if you do this. Meaning, I think the Belzer Hasidim and some others, they have TV channels in Israel for Kira for Choikim, for Jewish missionary work, which is positive, and they're good. Hidabrut, I think, at least has a Haskoma of the Belzer Rav. If it's not run by, I thought it was run by Belzer Hasidim, I don't know, whatever it is. In any event, it reminds me of the story. I think they asked Rav Shach, I think it was Menachem Begin offered to Rav Shach to pretty much pay for all the expenses of all the yeshivas and everything. And Rav Shach refused. He said, we'll take what we need, but we don't want to give all the power to the government, meaning, Begin compared to the other, what do they call Rosh Mimshalah, the prime ministers that the modern so-called state of Israel has had since 1948, would be, the least of many evils. The same thing in general. Netanyahu compared to some of his opponents, is the lesser of two evils, but doesn't make him any less evil. The same thing with Begin and so forth. But and then there were other issues with Menachem Begin. He was a terrorist. He was, he had a lot of other issues. But and other issues with his ideology and so forth. He was a repentant terrorist, but still. So anyway, so Rav Shach said to Menachem Begin, no, we cannot take the money, I don't know why it's upside down now, from the government for everything. In those yeshivas, they take what they take what they need, and so forth, and Panovich and so forth. And they said, if we're taking everything, we're going to have nothing, because eventually someone else is going to come along who is not as friendly as Begin, and maybe not as well-meaning as Begin, and they're going to pull the whole rug from out under the carpet, out under their feet, and then the yeshivas will be destroyed, God forbid. And so they need to be dependent on donations from America and England and so forth, and not dependent on the Israeli government. Still running? I don't know what's wrong with this thing. It's a different car, so we have a different... Anyway, along a similar line, it's not exactly the same, but you're setting a precedent here. Meaning, if the Israeli government can tell the Christians they cannot have their TV channel, what's to stop them from telling the Haredim, and taking away the license for Hidabrut or for whatever other Torah channels. And ultimately this underlies the entire problem with the state of Israel and Zionism in general, in addition to the heresy, and of course the bloodshed is the worst part of Zionism. That, this is something we have to remember and never forget, that since 1948, some 25,000 Jews have been killed in wars and terrorism. If they would have just went to America, or even if they would have gone to the Holy Land and not had their own state and gone peacefully, or settled in other places in Australia or wherever else, those 20,000 Jews would have lived much longer lives and not been killed in these wars and terrorism and so forth. That's the most important issue about Zionism. That's something we have to remember all the time, that Zionism kills Jews. And then they're going to argue, well, if there would have been a state of Israel during the Holocaust, they would have stopped it. That's not true, because it was the founders of the state of Israel who collaborated with the Nazis, because their feeling was that once the war ended, then they'd have their state, and the purpose of their state was like this, to pull the rug out from under the religious Jews. And so Zionism is a much more destructive force. All of the people who are going to, you hear certain Zionists, they talk about, don't forget what happened in the Crusades, how many Jews were killed in the name of Jesus. Since 1948, there have been no Jews killed in the name of Jesus, but there have been 25,000 Jews killed in the name of Zionism. So Zionism is much worse for the Jewish people. It's a major damage and danger to Jews. It kills Jews. So with all that being said, there's another issue. Being in America, we're able to sit down with people of other religions. I mean, even you have Rabbi Lapin is on the Christian channel and has a TV show every week. I don't know if he still does, but he used to. I think he still does. He sits with Glenn Beck, makes it somewhat of Kiddush Hashem. Some of the things he says are a little off, but he's an ehrlich person, a Talmud Chacham, and he's able to live in harmony with these other faiths. Being sequestered in the state of Israel blinds us to our mission in the world of being a light unto the nations. It develops a kind of a spiritual selfishness, and people, they don't see the forest through the trees, and there's just a lot of kind of bigotry that people don't even realize. I'll give you an example. I saw a video about the Messianics in Israel, and it was a little, teenager or something, or younger than that, who was from one of these families of Messianics, and this girl, she said, "Anachnu lo notzrim, anachnu Yudim." She said, "We're not Christians, we're Jews." But why? Because the Israeli mindset is that it's a racial identity as opposed to a theological one. Whereas throughout history, Judaism was a religion. It's only in the past, 200 years or so, that there was an idea of a quote-unquote secular Jew. Before that, if being Jewish meant you were religious, and
And if you didn't want to be Jewish anymore, you became Christian, or you became Muslim, or something else, and that's how it was. And that's how the Klal Yisrael was cleansed in many ways of undesirable elements. And at least the truth is, at least if they became Christians or Muslims, at least they were still ethical and monotheistic, and they still had something. Whereas the secular Jews, the atheists and hedonists and communists, very destructive to the world. I mean, communism killed more than Nazism, and they're all socialists. There's not really that much of a difference between the National Socialists and the International Socialists. They're all left-wing murderers. And really, the Israeli founders were also from the same stock of socialists. And these things are much more damaging to the world in general than any religion. I'm a little tired. I had a long day yesterday. Good day. Baruch Hashem, a wonderful day. Thankful for my day yesterday. I'm a little tired, but I wanted to talk about this issue. So then, the other issue we want to bring out of this. So therefore, they can take it out. If they can do this, they could destroy the religious broadcasting too, and all other kinds of things. We're much better off in a free market. That's my point. Free market. I'm a free market capitalist, not only in the financial, economic area, but I'm a free market in spirituality, I believe. I believe that the free market is the best thing for religion, because when you have religion and government so tied together, it leads to corruption. And we see how corrupt the chief rabbinate of the state of Israel has been throughout history. I mean, you saw Yonah Metzger spent how many years in prison? Because the rabbinate, the chief rabbinate of Israel, the government rabbinate, is a very corrupt organization. Because absolute power corrupts absolutely. As opposed to, and the same is true in the other countries where government and religion are together, where the government runs the religion, not where religion informs the government how it is in America, but where the government regulates and runs the religion. It's very, very dangerous and damaging to the world. Because the government, the religious become just other bureaucrats as opposed to spiritual leaders. And that's certainly how it is in Israel. Meaning, why the Haredim have nothing to do with the Rabbanut, or very little to do. Because the Rabbanut rabbis are not spiritual leaders, they're government bureaucrats. Very cold, calculated, let's follow the rules. And except when they don't. Meaning they tell everybody else to follow their rules, even when these rules have no basis in Jewish law. As opposed to, you go to an Erlicha Poisek, you go to a Hasidic Rebbe, you go to Mekubal, you go to wherever, there are also by Mekubalim and so forth, there are corrupt and phonies and so forth, but for the most part they're authentic, good people, and they're not corrupted because they're non-government entities. They're independent, and they don't have the power of the government. The people choose to follow these rabbis as opposed to having them imposed upon them by the government. And so the same issue, was in other countries where the government runs the church. Not that the church runs the government. You're never going to find that the church actually runs the government. What you're going to find is the government runs the church. And that's how it is in Israel. That's what Jefferson was talking about, the separation of church and state. So we have to protect the churches from the state. And so that's a big problem in Israel, in the modern so-called state of Israel, where the government runs everything, so people don't want to have anything to do with religion. You can't force people, so people are just totally turned off by religion because the government is shoving it down their throats. As opposed to, and not only that, but they see the corruption of the Rabbanut. So what do they want to have anything to do with it? But in America, a lot of these Israelis, when they come to America, they start going to shul, they start putting on tefillin, they wind up being all the way frum, because they recognize Judaism. Once they leave that mindset of the Israeli tyranny, they realize that Judaism is a religion and not a race and a culture and so forth. And so it's better off for them often in Israel for them to come to America and leave Israel. Just a little bit, not often, all the time, really. Now, the other issue, and I mentioned this, that this girl said, "Ani Yehudiya, ani lo notzriya," or whatever. She's saying that she's a Jew and not a Christian, even though she believes in Jesus. The opposite, that bigotry is there. I have a friend of mine, he was on our other channel, our old channel, Yeshiva, Roger Grattan, who I ordained as a minister in the Noahide tradition. And Reverend Grattan, he does what, like the Chazal say, that Ben Noach is allowed to be makriv korbanos. He's allowed to bring sacrifices on the bama. He can be makriv and ola, and so he offers sacrifices as worship to God. And someone made an article about it, and they say Notzri, me Pennsylvania, me America, me Artzot Abrit. In the article, it said like this, that he's a Notzri. But he hasn't been a Notzri, he hasn't been a Christian for 30 years. He's a Noahide, he's a Ben Noach. He's not a Christian. And yet the Israeli media called him a Christian. Because to them, being Christian doesn't mean that you're believing in Jesus. It means to them that you're not a Muslim and you're not a Hindu. So you're Christian. I mean, they don't understand that there's such an idea of the Ben Noach. Which again, we can discuss back and forth how appropriate this movement is. Certainly, we can agree that if someone is unable to convert to Judaism and they believe in Judaism, they have to keep the Sheva Mitzvahs B'nai Noach. Every Gentile has to, according to Jewish law. But if you don't believe in it, it's none of my business. And if you do believe in it, I personally think it's better for the believing non-Jew to convert to Judaism. But not everybody's able to do that. And I understand it. And part of that problem again is that the Jewish community is not as welcoming as they're supposed to be. Meaning the Torah commands us to love the stranger, have them as a ger, and the Code of Jewish Law tells us we're supposed to be welcoming the converts. But there's a racist element, I guess, it's the same ideology, and then the problem is, so then like my friend Rabbi Meza was talking about this also. He said, maybe this GOD TV is also going to convert some Muslims to Christianity, and then they won't be terrorists anymore. Now the thing is that's a racist thing to say, because not all of the Muslims are terrorists in Israel. But they're if they're going to be Christian, they're going to be more peaceful. That's really a stereotype. It's problematic to say that, but all right. So then, what about that? Isn't that something? And I know some people were supporting that, or whatever. But then the question is, why aren't we helping a lot of these? First of all, a lot of the Palestinians are actually Jewish or of Jewish ancestry, according to Jewish law. They've probably lost. It's been enough generations that they have to go through some kind of a gir l'chumrah. But a lot of them are like the Marranos, who were forced to convert to Islam under duress. But I don't think that makes a difference. Meaning, if they believe in Islam, they should be Muslims, and if they believe in Judaism, they should be Jews. It shouldn't be a blood issue. It should be a belief issue. The thing is, our beliefs and practices really aren't that different. If anything, the Muslims have. In their ideology, which again they don't always live up to, but they're supposed to recognize the ummah of all the different races that are all believers and practitioners of their faith. So I have to get this inspected, don't I? Has to go in for inspection. Anyway, thank you for watching. God bless. Please like, share, and subscribe. Comment. I'm not saying it's good that the missionaries are trying to convert Jews to Christianity. I think from the missionary side, they're being consistent, they're so I don't know. Anyway, thank you for watching. God bless. Please like, share, and subscribe. Comment. I think if anything, instead of complaining about the darkness, we should be adding more light. That's the answer. Meaning, instead of saying, these missionaries, they're making so many problems, why don't we push more Judaism then? Meaning, if it's like the story of the Dalai Lama. There was a cohort of rabbis who went to spend a week with the Dalai Lama, and at the end he said, you could ask whatever you want. One of the young Orthodox rabbis said, a lot of Jews come to you. Can you send them back to us? And all the liberal, reform, conservative rabbis were all shocked by this. How could you have so much chutzpah? He was so nice to us. And then they said, no, I do. They're Jews. They're not Buddhists. But the thing is, if you don't give them the spirituality that they're looking for, they're going to come right back to me. You got to give them something. You can't just say that they're, that's the thing, meaning, and it's an issue with all of the religions that are ethnic religions. It's the same thing with the Catholics and the Orthodox Christians. They rest on their laurels, believing these people, they're Catholic, these people, they're Orthodox, they're whatever they are, and then they see, how many millions of South Americans are becoming evangelicals. Why? Because they're not getting what they're looking for in the Catholic Church. And the thing is, maybe they're not going to. I don't think the Catholic Church has to change for them. And I don't think Judaism has to change for anybody else. Sometimes it's a rebranding of things that have always been, okay? And sometimes it's a problem that's not actually an inherent problem in the faith, but rather how it's been manifested, and corruption and other things. But I'm not here to Catholic bash. I'm here really to Jew bash, meaning to say, to speak to my own people and say, we have to be offering something that's going to be palatable to people who are looking for something. And the thing is, it's not a one-size-fits-all thing. Meaning certain people want to go to a concert, and certain people want to be doing a ceremony, and certain people want this, and certain people don't want religion at all, and you're not going to get everybody. And it's okay. In the end, God will take care of everything. It's not our job to make everybody Orthodox Jews. And our main job is to focus on ourselves and try to make ourselves as good as we can. But the thing is if we're going to share with other people, we can do that too. I don't know. I don't even know what the answer is. Yeah, it's frustrating that when we're allowed to have minyanim, sometimes in the small towns we have a hard time getting a minyan together. It would be nice to grow and think, but the thing is. And the thing is, I live in a town where there are a lot of Jews, and they don't like to go to shul. What am I going to do about it? I don't know. Is it really my job to make them go to shul? I don't know. Whatever. And so, we have one guy lives down the block from the shul, and he goes to Episcopal Church every Sunday with his wife because she's an Episcopalian. No, nothing I can do about it. I'm still going to be nice to this guy, and I don't really care. Let him, if he enjoys that, and that gives him spirituality and meaning in life. Gesund hate. I don't care. Do what you want to do. I want to live the way I live. And I don't want anybody telling me how. The same thing, Glenn Beck, he's a Mormon. He said he would never live in Utah. He would never live in Salt Lake City. Because he doesn't want his church to be that powerful where, And not only that, but he said, he doesn't want to send his kids to Mormon schools. He'd rather send his kids to like evangelical Christian schools. Let them choose on their own. There's a certain part of my heart that says, I'm going to try to give my kids the best way I can in Judaism. But if they decide to go somewhere else, I'm going to sit shiva for them. And Baruch Hashem, at least my girls are very Hamish, Hasidish. I don't know what's going to be with my boys. They're still young. But it's... I don't know. I can't hit someone over the head and force them to be interested in I try to, my son, he loves the video games, and he wanted to talk about a certain video game, and I said, I never played that game. I played other games in that series. I know about it, but this particular one I never played. So, and he's trying to get me excited about it. And I said, maybe you can show me this, and if I can show you a mission in Pirkei Avos. And he was like, I don't know. I was like, fine. So I don't need to see this either. I'm not going to force you to learn Pirkei Avos either. Anyway, I got to learn a little bit. Thank you for watching. God bless. Please like, share, and subscribe. Comment. I don't know. I'm rambling on too much. All right. God bless. Please like, share, and subscribe. Comment. And I hope my kids grow up to be Ehrlich Chassidish Machine. Trying to make a shtickler Rebbe Vista. If all three of my sons will sein Rebelach, would be a wonderful thing. And I hope they'll be better. I know my daughters are firmer than I am. So we'll see what happens. They're still young anyway, the boys, but thank you for watching. God bless. Please like, share, and subscribe. Comment. We'll see you all later. Take care.